Gridiron Grinder! Hut hut hike!
All right, and we are back and we are rolling. So, how you doing tonight, James?
Doing all right.
How's the weather out there in Cali, man?
It's nice out.
That's good to hear. It was a pretty nice day here today too, pretty warm. Okay, so for tonight we are going to be doing a comparison of our own fantasy football top 10 rankings by position compared to what's on Yahoo currently, including Yahoo's ADP. And so we've got basically four different angles of looking at this. And we're going to go down by position. We'll just, burn our way through, see how far we get, kind of talk about where we were off and why we think we were off, and, just a few things we like and dislike about some of the rankings, and just, we'll see where it goes. So without any further ado, how about we jump in and start talking about quarterbacks? And just let me see if I can share my screen here, and I will pop up our comparison. Okay, so here are the quarterbacks. And, when we take a look here, it looks like pretty much between ADP, Yahoo, and us, we've all got Mahomes and Lamar Jackson at 1 and 2, which, I think depending on what sources you look at, some of them do have Lamar Jackson at 1, just because he had such a huge year this past year. But I think either way you go, both of them have a pretty high probability of tearing it up again.
Yeah, exactly. Lamar concerns me with the injury and with the injury risk and taking a step back possibly, like Mahomes did from his MVP year to last year. But I mean, he still won the Super Bowl last year, so Mahomes did.
Yeah, when I look at it, I agree. I think there's maybe not just injury risk, but I think with Lamar, it was such a huge breakout that you got to expect some regression. And I think we talked about it a little bit last week, just like from the fantasy perspective, that those quarterbacks that break 30 points per game have an average decline of 8 points per game the next season, which it's huge. I mean, he still is top tier, but it's a big drop off. And then I think Mahomes, he was partially hobbled last year, but he still had an okay. I mean, a good year. I wouldn't just say an okay year, but I think he comes back healthy. He's got basically the same team, and he might not go back to where he was 2 years ago, where he was breaking records, but I think he's gonna be well on his way to staying in that 1 or 2 spot. And so, yeah, those top two positions, I think those are pretty solid. From there, I thought it was interesting that both Yahoo and the ADP had Dak at 3, and then you and I both had Deshaun Watson at 3. What do you think about that?
Well, I think they had Dak at 3 because last year the passing game in Dallas, I think it was like the second most efficient passing game in the league, even though Dallas was 8-8, which is surprising. But with I think Dak had a good year last year, and I'm not sure that that's repeatable.
Gotcha. Yeah. So when I was looking at it, um, Deshaun Watson, I know everybody thinks he's going to fall off a little bit without DeAndre Hopkins. I look at him as just ultra competitive. And when I put him in my model for fantasy football, the guy puts up a ton of points. And I think Dak had a great year. We talked about that last week too, that, we might not like him as much if we were a coach or a GM having him be our quarterback. But from a fantasy perspective, he definitely puts up some stats. I just think that it's a new system. There's some risk. Last year was obviously like a career year for him. Some of that regresses a little bit. And I think Watson, he's got a chip on his shoulder now, without DeAndre Hopkins. Plus, I think Brandon Cooks is going to be good for them. I think, honestly, he's got plenty of weapons. And I think having David Johnson, if he can stay healthy and show, maybe some semblance of what he was a few years ago. He doesn't have to be that top tier runner, but just enough of a dual threat. I think that's a huge help for Deshaun Watson, and I like him there at number 3. So moving on from there, basically, I had I had Drew Brees at 4, which was kind of high, but you had Brees at 6. And then when you look at Yahoo and the ADP, they got him down closer to 8 and 9. What did you think about that?
Well, with Breeze, my concern is he's getting older. Last year, he really needed the time off with the injury, and that helped him like towards the end of the year. If you look at the year before, he started out phenomenal, and then like week 10, 11, in that area started to decline. He really can't throw the deep ball as well as he used to. He just seems to be declining rapidly to me.
Gotcha. So even in your rankings, where you have him, could be a bit of a risk.
Yeah.
I gotcha. Yeah, and I do worry about that with him, that at any year, he could fall off. He could have that Peyton Manning like year where the arm strength is just gone and it's a train wreck. But man, I look at these last couple of years, it seems like people have been saying that for a few years now. And I'm looking at his team and I'm thinking, hey, Kamara's going to be coming back healthy. He's going to have Emmanuel Sanders as his wide receiver 2. Which is probably the best wide receiver 2 he's had. Michael Thomas obviously is legit. Jared Cook, he's been having a nice breakout these last few years. I don't know. I guess I'm just banking on Breeze putting up one more big year, at least from a fantasy perspective.
Yeah.
Okay, so going on from there. So you had Kyler Murray at 4. Which, I think a lot of people are expecting big things from him. Yahoo and ADP had him at 5. I had him down just a little bit, but, I'm kind of looking at it like, I know there's a lot to expect, but I'm just tempering it thinking, he's still young. He's still got some time to develop. I'm not expecting it all right now, but I do think he's on that path.
Yeah. Well, the thing I looked at with Kyler Murray is last year he was about 7, 8 overall in fantasy points from a QB, and he had 6 games without a touchdown.
Oh, wow.
So, I mean, that right there, and with the addition of Hopkins, I think they're going to be looking downfield more, and that's why I see him being so high.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, I didn't realize he had that many games without a TD, but that to be putting up that many points, and now he's got Hopkins, probably going to get him in the end zone a little bit more. I can see that. All right, so then after that, we both got Russell Wilson, which I mean, if I'm a coach or a GM taking it the other way, I mean Russell Wilson's he's probably in my top 3. Maybe him and Deshaun Watson are kind of borderline for me, but I think Wilson's ultra competitive. He's one of those guys, you got the game on the line. I would love to have him at the helm. Fantasy-wise, I don't know, man. They always seem like they're a run-first team, and I've heard that they might let him air the ball out a little bit more this year, but I just think the upside when you compare to these other people, maybe he's got a little bit of a cap on his ceiling because of that.
Well, the thing with Russell Wilson that I looked at on that was, even though they seem like a run-first team, he can, over the last 3 years, he's had 30-plus touchdowns a year, single-digit interceptions. So I mean, he seems to take care of the ball, and he scores touchdowns, and that's where I saw him being higher up.
Gotcha. Yeah, getting in the end zone, that's obviously a huge factor. Yeah. All right, so, I guess looking over here at Yahoo and their ADP, they got Josh Allen, both of them at 7, and neither of us had Josh Allen in our top 10. What'd you think about that?
I could see why possibly Josh Allen could be up there. The reason I didn't is because I really don't trust him yet. I don't know how much of chemistry he's going to have with Diggs, and Diggs is going to be, if he's not throwing to Diggs, Diggs is going to throw a fit again.
Oh yeah.
And I can see things going badly in Buffalo this year.
Yeah, I looked at it similarly where I thought they brought in Zach Moss at running back, who could end up being their goal line guy. Maybe that hawks away a few touchdowns from him, which normally, that's where he's getting some of his fantasy action is on the ground. And then I think you also have development with Devin Singletary on the ground. And you might just look at it and say, can he maintain the amount of rushing yards that he's had, which is probably one of the big reasons why he's climbed this high in fantasy football. And I had him on a team last year, and I liked him in fantasy because those running quarterbacks do give you a safe ground or safe floor. Yeah, his accuracy, super sketchy. I think getting Diggs helps him. I don't know. I don't see him getting to that next level as a passer just yet. And I think his rushing yards could come down. And so I'm just not ready to put him in the top 10.
Yeah.
Okay, so after that, we, basically you and I both got Matt Ryan kind of in that range, rounding out the last couple picks. You got Rodgers, I've got Rodgers in my 10 spot. They don't have Rodgers in their top 10, which I thought was interesting. And, when I went back and I looked at his stats in my model, last year in our league, anyhow, which is standard scoring, he was he wasn't in the top 10, but he was close. And, I look at it and I kind of think this year teams know that LaFleur wants to run the ball. I mean, he did it all year last year. And so I think they're going to hone in on that a little bit, which is going to have them passing more just as a counter to it. And so I'm expecting Rodgers to have his stats come up just enough, which I think brings him back into the top 10. I don't know that he's going to be top 5 again. Maybe those days are done. But I think he could definitely creep back into that top 10 area.
Yeah.
And then I see you got Tom Brady. In my rankings, man, Brady just missed the cut. I had with my last couple picks, Stafford, Rodgers, and I also had Brady and even Josh Allen. I know we just talked about him, but I had those 4 guys very closely rated in my projections. But Stafford and Rodgers got the edge.
Yeah, I gave Brady a little bit of an edge because he has just so much talent around him at wide receivers. He has talent at running back. I think that was what was missing last year in New England. Even though he didn't really have talent last year in New England, he was 14th in fantasy production.
Yeah, he still makes it happen.
So I could see him taking a step forward with having talent around him.
I agree. He's not had weapons like this before. And so, yeah, he's probably a little bit of a wild card pick in my opinion. He could blow it up. I looked at it and I kind of, when I built some of my rankings, I thought, is he going to have 5,000 yards like Jameis Winston did? Maybe not, because I don't know that team needs him to have 5,000 yards. I think that he's such a good, smart quarterback that they're going to win games without him blowing it up like that. But he might blow it up like that because this could be his last hurrah. And so, we'll see how it plays out. But I'm really excited to see him in Tampa Bay.
Yeah, and the last time he did have talent, that much talent around him once. That was when they had Moss,
Randy Moss.
Randy Moss, and he threw like 60 touchdowns, and not really 60, but
yeah, but close.
Whatever,
50.
Whatever the record, he set the record. It was like 55 or some ridiculous amount.
Yeah. So how did it go? He broke it, and then Peyton broke it, or was it the other way? Off the top of my head, I'm a little foggy, but yeah, they were close. One of them had it, and then the other one took it, and that was like some heyday of passing right there. All right, so let's see. You want to move on to the running backs, or is there any final comments on the QBs?
No real final comments. Like, well, with Carson Wentz, I kind of put Carson Wentz up there because last year he didn't have his receivers couldn't catch the ball at all, and they have so many upgrades at receiver that if any of them take, he should bounce back and come close to what the year he had, the year Philly won the Super Bowl, where he probably would have been the MVP that year
Oh, I gotcha. Yeah, no, and I
before he
like the
got
Wentz
hurt.
pick. Yeah, he was pretty close to making that last cut too in my book. Um, yeah, I do worry the wide receiver situation. I think he's got two great tight ends. They brought in a good rookie at receiver, and I think running back they're fine. I just worry Deshaun Jackson and Alshon Jeffrey. It looks like Alshon Jeffrey is going to start on pup. And Deshaun Jackson, maybe has a pending, I don't know. I don't know that he's going to get in trouble for all that stuff that just happened. It looks like, he's apologized and the team's been working with him and it's going to be okay. But, anytime that stuff happens, it just makes me a little bit nervous about what's going on with that player.
Yeah,
But yeah, no, I like Wentz overall. I tell you, when I look at the quarterbacks this year, man, it's deep, and it's been that way for a little while. That you know, in fantasy, I'm not itching necessarily to go after a guy in the top 10 unless I get the right value. I'm comfortable waiting. And even if I got to try a couple different guys and see who makes it out on top, there's a lot of options this year for sure.
yeah. I generally, unless everything like falls right in like all the other players, I generally try not to even come close to drafting a quarterback in the first 4 rounds because you never you can always find the talent at the back end that's going to do a sufficient job. Like I mean, look at last year. I'll mention it again. I drafted Jackson in like the 8th or 9th round, something like that.
Oh yeah, yeah. Nobody was expecting that kind of a blow up. I had no idea that was going to happen. In fact, I was banking against it. I thought last year Baltimore was going to be in trouble with Harbaugh. A lot of it looked like there was a rift, and they were kind of when they drafted Jackson. It seemed like they were kind of forcing it on Harbaugh to get Flacco out of there. And I thought, oh man, this whole thing's falling apart. And I wasn't in the locker room or in the offices, and so I don't know what was really going on. But from afar, it looked like that could have been the end of it if they didn't work some magic. And lo and behold, the defense was solid just like it always is, and Jackson blew it up. And so it ended up being a happy ending so far.
Yeah.
All right, so here, let me switch it back here to sharing my screen so we can take a look at the running backs. Okay, so, once again, everybody had McCaffrey at 1, and then at 2, I was really the only one here switching it up. I went with Derrick Henry instead of Saquon Barkley. I tell you, I went back and I double checked my stats in my model and all the factors I look at, and I discounted Derrick Henry pretty significantly, and he still kept coming out as my number 2. And so at some point I thought, hey, I can't fight it anymore. I just got to put him there. But
Yeah.
yeah, Barkley, definitely has a ton of upside too. The dual threat, the runner and the receiver. What do you think about that?
Well, with Derrick Henry, the thing that concerns me with him is he had such high usage last year. I mean, he had over 300 carries, and they used him so much in the postseason as well. I could see him kind of. Plus, he got his contract, which is also a concern at running back because once the running back get their contract, they tend to fall off the face of the earth.
That's true. That it's sometimes it's a good thing for them personally, but it signals sometimes a bad turn for them production wise. We've seen it with a ton of people. We saw it with Devonta Freeman. We saw it with Todd Gurley, just in recent years. But yeah, you never know. And yeah, I was concerned. I discounted it because they lost Jack Conklin. And like you're saying, I discounted it because of the usage. And man, I just the number still ended up being so high. I just thought, I'm just going to stick with it. We'll see what happens. If I was in a
Yeah.
PPR league, No way could I put him at 2. I would have to make an adjustment. But for standard scoring, I think it's worth taking the shot. From there, basically everybody but me had Zeke at 3. That's where I got Saquon Barkley in, and then I had Zeke at 4. Which I think that's just kind of the general consensus. It looks like, let's see, 1, 2, 3. You guys were all on the same page. At 4, they got Kamara. I had Kamara in the top 10, but not that high. Which even in my top 10, I think it's a risk. We talked about it last week. I think he's a better complementary player, and he can be a wild card that puts up a tons of stats. But until we can see him carry the full load on his own, man, I'm awfully nervous having him in the top 5 like Yahoo does. And you don't even have him in the top 10.
Yeah, for some reason, there's something about Kamara this year that my gut's telling me he's not going to have a good year. And that's my top 10. A lot of it is off of just gut feeling on the player based on their production and what I see. I don't do any fancy stats going out with not going out with any modeling on it. I kind of look at what they've done and just go on gut feel, and my gut feel tells me that he's not a top 10 running back this year. Gotcha.
Hey, it's bold, but everybody's got to do their own thing with the rankings, and you got to have some conviction to it. And it's one of these things. None of us have the crystal ball, so we'll see how it plays out. Okay, so after that, basically we got Dalvin Cook, and we're all kind of pretty close with where we got Dalvin Cook. I had Joe Mixon, which was pretty close to what Yahoo had, but you don't have Joe Mixon in your top 10 either. Tell me about that a little bit.
I don't really like Cincinnati's offense this year. I think with the rookie quarterback, they're going to have a lot of struggles, and yeah, the running game could make up for that, but I see them trying to come from behind a lot, which is going to lead to them trying to force the passing, and with the rookie quarterback, defenses can focus on the running game. I just see Joe Mixon taking a step back.
Yeah, that's true. It's definitely it's an issue. Yeah, I guess I kind of looked at him as, man, he's like one of the true workhorse backs. And, I remember going into last year, I was wondering, how's it going to play out with Giovanni Bernard? Is he going to get the third down work? What's going to happen? And, Joe Mixon just took the whole thing. And so I thought, looking at my top 10 guys, I think their offensive line gets better. I think they get A.J. Green back. That's going to help them. But you're right. There's definitely risk with a rookie quarterback that could have him putting 8 men in the box, and that could definitely put a dent in his production. So now the other one that honestly surprised me a little bit, and I love Le'Veon Bell, but man, I'm so nervous about where he's going to be this year. You got him like nice in the middle of the pack here. What do you think about that?
Well, with Bell, the thing I looked at was last year he was struggling through injuries, and he kind of had a down year. They had all the issues at quarterback there, and with Darnold coming back, and if Darnold's healthy all year and doesn't get mono again somehow,
yeah,
I see he can throw the ball downfield, which is going to open up lanes in the running game, and plus I think their offensive line has taken steps forward. Is going to take steps forward this year, which will allow Le'Veon Bell the time to develop the run like he generally likes to.
Gotcha.
Like, slowly read how the blockings go and then go, as opposed to somebody being on him right away.
Yeah, see, I'm nervous about it when I look at it with the problems that he had with Gase coming in. It seemed like Gase didn't even want him when they signed him. And then, yeah, the problems with Darnold definitely impacted him because defenses could just focus on stopping him. And then, the offensive line is sketchy. I think they basically revamped everything they can revamp, which normally I would say, okay, that's a plus. But with how strange of an offseason it's been, I wonder, is that going to work against him this year? And then, man, I tell you, I'm actually a little bit suspect on Darnold, and I think the more I think about it, the more suspect I am. And I don't know that it's really Darnold as much as I just don't think Gase is a good coach, man. And I think that that's going to hurt both these guys. I think it's going to hold them both back.
Yeah, it's possible. I just, again, gut feeling.
Yeah. Well, hey, as a Sparty, I'm hoping Le'Veon Bell bounces back. He sure as heck tore it up when he was in Pittsburgh. Okay, so after that, okay, I didn't have Kenyon Drake in my top 10. That's one where, man, he had one heck of a run last year after the trade. But I guess I'm kind of looking at it like, hey, man, I love Nick Chubb. I think Josh Jacobs is going to take another step up, and he had a great year. And then really, Mark Ingram, he's maybe a little bit of a wild card on here. And when I looked at him in my model, I thought, man, J.K. Dobbins could snipe some touches away from him and drop him down. I kind of thought, hey, because of this offseason, maybe Ingram hangs on to that a little tighter this year, and then Dobbins really becomes a threat next year as he's got a season under his belt, or even as the year goes on, which could definitely hurt Ingram later on. But with Kenyon Drake, I thought, I don't know. I guess I just want to see him continue where he left off. Because his time up until he went to Arizona was pretty checkered. There was some flashes, and then there was periods where he just disappeared. And so I guess I just need to see it a little bit longer before I feel comfortable with it.
Yeah, and the thing I like about Kenyon Drake with the addition of Hopkins and Kyler Murray's ability to throw the ball downfield again, I think that's going to open up the running game a little bit better, like it did. And he's going to have similar stats. Plus, they don't have David Johnson to snap touches away from Drake.
That's true. Yeah, and I mean, geez, David Johnson fell off the map last year, but yeah, no, I think they're committed to Drake being their guy, and yeah, he could definitely blow it up, and I could be like kicking myself I didn't put him in there, but hey, we'll see what happens, man. And ADP had him in top 10. Yahoo had him in top 10. He was there for me just on the edge. And so, I think he definitely has a shot. I couldn't put him in there. Hey, I mean, I got like Chubb at 8, which, ADP and Yahoo have Chubb at 8. Yeah, I tell you, man, he's one of these wild cards too, because they got Kareem Hunt. And, man, I look at it, if something were to happen to Hunt, they trade him. I don't know why they would trade him, but, he's had some off-field issues. Maybe they want to move him. Maybe he gets suspended because of those off-field issues, or let's just say he gets injured. Man, Chubb would skyrocket up my board, especially with where I see that offense going. Man, I don't know. I like Chubb. I got a man crush on him.
Yeah. Well, my thing, the reason why Chubb wasn't in my top 10 was specifically because of Hunt.
Gotcha.
Because last year when Hunt came back from the 8-game suspension or however many games he missed, it seemed to me like Chubb's.
It did take a dent out of his production. Yeah, it definitely hurt him, and it makes me wonder: are they going to have that split, or is this new regime going to emphasize Chubb? Because I mean, last year they got the guy that was in Minnesota, right? And so, he basically ran the heck out of Dalvin Cook until he got hurt,
Yeah.
And so he could end up doing that same thing with Chubb. You never know. But, with Kareem Hunt as a backup, it's such a different aspect that, yeah, I guess we just got to wait and see how it plays out. So what'd you think about Yahoo having Miles Sanders at 10? I know you got Clyde Edwards-Helaire, which, man, that guy, I think he's got a ton of potential. But yeah, what do you think about Miles Sanders at 10?
I am confused by it.
To put it lightly.
I don't know what he's shown to justify that. Is like all my fantasy books I've read have him in the top 10 too, but I don't see it. I mean, his last year he had 800 yards.
Yeah. Yeah, so I think he, as the season went on, started showing that he could break out a little bit. And I can understand some of the hype, but I'm with you that I don't know. It seems like Philly has always used, at least, under the current regime, they've always used a combination of running backs. And so, what are the odds that all of a sudden Miles Sanders gets the full workload? Just go for it, and he makes it the top 10. It could happen. I just don't see it. I don't see him beating any of the guys that you or I have in our top 10 list, anyhow.
Yeah, and well, for me, Fournette was kind of a little bit of a wild card because I don't. Who knows what's going to happen with Jacksonville? They're going to be a terrible team this year, anyways.
Oh, yeah.
So it I think they're going to be running the ball a lot, and especially with Minshew at quarterback, I think they're going to try to run the ball a lot and just beat the shit out of Fournette before they get rid of him.
Yeah, so when I did my rankings, I honestly was expecting Fournette to be in my top 10. And I think one of the things I discounted, and it just put him out of there. He's definitely in my top 15, but I think one of the things that dropped him out of the top 10 was that they brought in Chris Thompson. And I looked at it with Jay Gruden as their offensive coordinator this year. I kind of thought, I can see Thompson taking all of that third down work. And Fournette got a lot of it last year. And I know he's not a great receiver, but, he did okay last year. But I think with Chris Thompson taking that, it takes just enough of a dent out of it that it drops him down in my book. But I think, a lot of the rankings I've looked at have Fournette even lower. And I think he is going to do better than people are expecting. But yeah, the Thompson thing's a little bit of a wild card to see what happens with him.
Yeah.
All right, so what are you thinking? You want to move on to wide receivers, or you got any final comments on running backs here?
I'm good to move on to wide receivers.
Okay, let me slide on down on my spreadsheet here, and I will pop it back up and share my screen. Give me just 1 second here. Okay, so here's the breakdown of the wide receivers. No doubt here we all had Michael Thomas at number one. Yahoo and the ADP had Devontae Adams at 2, and then Tyreek Hill at 3. And it kind of goes from there. I think all of us, we've got a lot of the same names in the top 5, and then it starts to break up a little bit. I don't know. What do you think about Devontae Adams at 2?
I don't understand it again. Devontae Adams hasn't really shown that he can consistently produce. Last year people are going to draft him first second round, and they're going to be annoyed again that he has 57 yards a game for the first 6 weeks of the season.
Yeah, I think, last year he was injured, playing through injury a lot, kind of drug him down a little bit. But, with the way they've emphasized the run, and with the way that he's basically the only guy there in the passing game, defenses are going to double team him. They're going to shut him down. I can't see him being number 2. I put a lot of people ahead of him. I mean, geez, if I look at mine, I had him down at number 8. An 8 might be too low. Maybe I'm beating him up too much, but, I don't know. I just think he's got a lot of things working against him.
Yeah.
So then you got Tyreek Hill at 2. I like it. I had him at 4. Honestly, probably the only reason I had him that low is just that there's just so many frickin' mouths to feed in Kansas City. That team is just stacked. And I know Mahomes is going to have a better year than last year. And so, yeah, I can see Tyreek at 2. I just dropped him down a little bit just because I see the ball getting spread out a bit, and I think that could maybe hinder him from reaching number 2 in my book. But I don't disagree with you having him there. I think it's, he's well worth it. So from there, this is one that it might sound stupid, but, it made me a little bit nervous when I was looking at Godwin at 3. And then I also had Mike Evans at 7. I thought, geez, can these two guys really be that high? And I think, it goes back to the conversation about Brady. How is this going to play out? Is Mike Evans going to be his guy? Is Godwin going to be his guy? Or, I mean, hey, maybe Gronk ends up being his guy. I just look at the history of Brady, at least in recent memory, like Edelman, going back to Wes Welker days. He's had these like quicker, not very big stature receivers. And Godwin, man, he just was like such a freak last year that I thought, okay, if I got to pick one of them, I'm just going to say Godwin ends up being the guy. And, I think at 3, maybe this pick bites me in the butt a little bit, but I don't know. It's my model. I'm sticking to it. We'll see what happens.
No, I could see that. Like, I struggled to put Hopkins and Julio outside of the top 4, just when I was looking at it with Hopkins, who consistently produces no matter who his quarterback is,
Mm-hmm.
and Julio catches everything that's thrown in his direction. So I struggled putting them outside the top 4, and that's the only reason why I dropped Godwin to 5. And I dropped Mike Evans down to 10 because of the fact that if you looked at his production last year, a lot of his big games, a lot of his numbers were produced with big plays downfield, and Brady doesn't have the arm that Jameis Winston does. So Brady's going to be throwing underneath, which is going to go to Godwin, or going to go to the running back, or going to go to whatever tight end flavor of the week is, which I'm assuming is probably going to be mostly Gronk.
Yeah, that's a valid point. Yeah, that could definitely be a factor. And I think, without having the game log in front of me, if we went back and looked at Mike Evans last year, I think a ton of his points came in like a 2 or 3 game span where he just blew up. And then he still had a great year otherwise, but it was definitely tempered down aside from those couple blow up games. And yeah, I just, I wonder how that'll be. I think Brady's going to hit the tight ends a lot. And, like I said, this is the one that makes me nervous. My wide receiver rankings, I just, man, I don't know. We'll see. They could definitely be different. I tell you what I did like, though. I did like that both you and I had Cooper Kupp in the top 10. And, when I looked at the Yahoo and the ADP, they had him, I want to say, closer to like the 15 range. He was somewhere in the 10 to 15 range. And I don't know, man. I don't know why they're dogging him so much. I think without Brandon Cooks, it's going to help him. He's going to have more looks than he had last year. Well, I guess Brandon Cooks, he had a really down year last year. But I don't know. I just see Cooper Kupp continuing to produce, and it seems like he came out and made a splash early on. And I don't know. All of a sudden, it's like he's under the radar a little bit.
Yeah. Well, the thing with Cooper Kupp I looked at was with them having new running backs, then they're going to be. I see them possibly throwing the ball downfield more. And Cooper Kupp, I think, if you look at 2 years ago before he got hurt, he's put up he was putting up solid numbers, and Goff was having incredible games when Cooper Kupp was in the game. But then once Cooper Kupp got hurt, and was the Kansas City game he got hurt in, Goff took multiple steps backwards, not being able to throw touchdowns in a game, not really having offensive cohesiveness.
I got you. So, one thing I noticed, neither of us had Odell Beckham in the top 10, but Yahoo and the ADP, they got him sitting there at 9 and 10. Apparently we're not seeing him bouncing back like they do. I think this new offense, where if they're emphasizing play action, maybe it gives him time to throw some more deep passes and have him work his magic. But, in my opinion, I looked at his stats, and he's declined every year that he's been in the league. The guy's a basket case, and, tons of talent. I just, it's one of these deals. It's like, hey, prove it that you can do it, because there's been a lot of talk, and it's only been going south the last couple seasons.
Yeah, plus, I don't trust Baker Mayfield that much to be able to be consistent.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, how much are they going to pass? How many yards are we talking to divvy out? if it's 3,500 yards, that's a totally different story because he's got Jarvis Landry still. They brought in Austin Hooper. They still got Njoku. And they'll get the ball to Kareem Hunt in the passing game a little bit. That definitely limits, how big the pie is and how big of a piece Odell Beckham can get. Maybe the run game ends up opening up the pass and he ends up having 4,000 yards. Yeah, I don't know. I still am just not seeing it.
Yeah.
All right, so tell me a little bit more about your rankings. You got Galladay up there a little bit. We both had Amari Cooper in there, which I'm just flipping back here, but I don't think Amari was in the top 10 otherwise. Why don't you just, I guess, hit the highlights on a couple of your guys?
Well, with Galladay, the thing I looked at is the Lions pass the ball a ridiculous amount.
Oh yeah.
And if Stafford's healthy, is able to stay healthy this year, I think his production will increase. Galladay's production will increase because if you look prior to Stafford's injury, he was on pace for some ridiculous season. Then Stafford got hurt, and Galladay took 6 steps back and couldn't seem to catch up.
Well, yeah, David Blau throwing him the ball, Driscoll. I mean, it was not ideal by any means.
Yeah.
And so then we got Cooper up there. What do you think about him? I know he was kind of like boom or bust last year, but I think because he has that boom factor, that was enough for me to put him here in the top 10.
Well, the thing I looked at with Cooper was with having the addition of CD Lamb and that another receiver that can stretch the field. I think if CD Lamb can catches on to the offense and has even half the year that I think he potentially could have, I could see Cooper seeing a lot of single coverage instead of being the main focus of the defense, which is what gave him a boost on my end.
Yeah, I can see that for sure. Okay, let's see. I'm just taking a peek at some of their rankings. I know they got Allen Robinson on here. Yahoo had Allen Robinson at 6, which I like Allen Robinson. I just think that they got to answer the quarterback question first, and then I can evaluate him better. I think if Trubisky ends up getting the first crack at it, I discount Robinson. If Foles comes in and takes it over, I can see that passing game being a little bit more stable. I like Allen Robinson. I think he's underrated. I just, I don't know. Until they figure out the quarterback thing, I can't fit him in my top 10. Oop, you cut out there for a minute. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I got you. For some reason, my camera turned off for some reason.
Wigged out on you. That's okay. We can move on, and, as long as I can hear you, we can keep the dialogue flowing. Yeah, there you go. Good stuff. All right. Oh, hey, you got a Detroit shirt on again. Is that Red Wings or Tigers or what you got?
It's Tigers this week.
Nice. I got my fantasy football championship shirt on from 2017. That was my last win. I figure, hey, we're talking fantasy. I might as well flaunt it a little bit.
Yeah, I figured I'd throw the Tigers shirt on because baseball finally started up and had the Tigers game on the background, and they got absolutely smoked.
Oh, geez. Well, you got to celebrate it whichever way you can.
Yeah.
All right, so here we go. We're moving on to tight end, and let me pop them up on the screen here. Tight end, everybody had Kelsey at 1 except for me. I think, let's see, our top 3 are pretty close. I guess I had Mark Andrews at 4. I think, honestly, when you look at them, some of these guys are pretty interchangeable. I think the talent's there for all of them. Kittle, I put him at 1 just because when I look at Kelsey, man, I've heard some stuff and read some stuff that people are questioning if he's lost a step or not. And, I'm sure it's just, rampant speculation. But if that's the case, you couple that with how many other options Mahomes has to throw to. And I just thought, I can't have him at 1. And then I
Yeah.
put him down at 3, actually, because I thought with Ertz, given the state of that wide receiver room, maybe Ertz has a further bump in production, which he's already ultra productive. But, having him at 2, yeah, maybe it's a little bit aggressive, but I'm rolling the dice.
Well, I actually, when I originally did my rankings before, and I was going back over my initial feeling was putting Ertz at 2 and Andrews at 3, but then I switched it up because of the fact that Andrews, I think, he struggled through injuries last year, and he still had a really good. I think he was injured last year. I'm pretty
So,
sure
so
he had injuries last year.
yeah, so my only concern with Mark Andrews is just that, uh, you know, is that offense going to regress now that teams have a year of watching them work the magic that they work? Can they slow them down a little bit? I don't know. I just think it's a risk. But, really, I think those top 4 guys in my book, um, from a fantasy standpoint, if you can get one of them, you're set. If you can't get one of them, you're probably looking at maybe doing some form of streaming. But I could see any one of these guys in my top 4 finishing as the number 1 tight end, to be honest.
Well, the issue I have with Kittle is generally speaking, the loser of the Super Bowl
Oh, the hangover.
takes a step back the following year, and Jimmy G is inconsistent as all get out. So
Oh, yeah.
I don't trust him enough to be able to get anything going in the passing game.
Yeah, no, I hear you on that, and I gave Kittle a boost because I thought, um, the hangover thing is definitely a risk, but I thought with Debo Samuel getting hurt, um, you know, it's going to open up some opportunity for Kittle to get some more looks, at least earlier on in the year. And when I looked at his stats, I thought, geez, for them being really a run heavy team, he still put up really good numbers. And I thought, hey, if he ends up kind of being their top guy for a little while because Debo's out, that was enough in my book to give him the edge in my rankings at least. But yeah, I
Yeah.
guess there is risk as the season goes on and that falls off. Debo comes back. Yeah, maybe he's not the top guy, but and then yeah, if they have the hangover, the Super Bowl hangover, yeah, that's a game changer for that whole team. So all right, so at 4, you got Darren Waller, and I had him down at 8. And man, I don't know, this one it makes me nervous, and I think we talked a little bit about it last week. But when I saw how much uh, Derek Carr started throwing to Hunter Renfrow as the season went on, and it looked like Waller's numbers were going down. It just made me nervous coming into this year. I'm thinking, holy cow, if they pick up where they left off, Waller could end up being a huge disappointment. But, when you look at the potential, I mean, it's definitely there. The guy is a highly athletic tight end.
Yeah, and with Waller, I can see the issue with Hunter Renfrow and basically him being a disappointment. But everything I was seeing on him, everybody has him basically top 5 somewhere. Everybody. I probably looked at 15 different rankings, and everyone had him in the top 5, and so I couldn't make a case against him being up there.
I gotcha. Yeah, you couldn't dispute it. No, and hey, I mean, he definitely could do it. We saw the first half of last year. The talent is there. So we'll see how it plays out with that one. One of them that I was kind of surprised about is that I had Jared Cook at 5, and I had him like securely at 5, but you didn't even get him in your top 10. Uh, so obviously we had some pretty big disparity there. What are you thinking with that?
Well, for Jared Cook, the thing I was looking at, I almost had him actually at 9, where his ADP is,
Okay.
but but when I looked at his numbers, and he numbers last year and the previous year, he seems to top out at like 700-800 yards, and not very many. Last year he had 9 touchdowns, but before that he had like 2 and 6. And his numbers just don't seem to be up there enough for me to pop him into the top 10. And so that's what gave Noah Fant the edge, because I think that with the growing between Fant and Locke I think those two are gonna do good things in Denver.
Oh, I definitely agree with that. And I wanted to get Fant into my top 10. It just didn't work out with my model, and I try and stick to my numbers as much as I can. But on the flip side of that, so you got Higbee at 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and I've got I don't have him in my top 10, but Yahoo and the ADP, they both are seeing big things out of Higbee. And I know the guy flashed some potential last year. I think this is another one of these deals where I guess I'm just waiting to see, can he continue that momentum? Was it a flash in the pan? There's so many things in flux with that offense. I don't know. I guess I had a hard time evaluating him, which is why I couldn't really find a way to fit him in my top 10 when I was looking at these other guys.
Well, the thing I looked at with Higbee is, who really else do they have to throw to besides Cooper Kupp and Higbee?
Well, Robert Woods is solid, but yeah, I hear you. So, your third option is, who is it? Josh Reynolds, maybe. I'd have to go and look at it, but
Yeah.
but yeah. So you got a suspect number 3 wide receiver, and then how much are they going to pass to the running backs? That remains to be seen. Is Cam Akers going to be that guy? Because I don't know that Malcolm Brown or Darrell Henderson are really receiving backs like that, but maybe there's some tape there that I haven't seen, or just haven't been following well enough.
Well, and that's the thing with McShay, no, McVay. What's
Yeah,
his name?
McVay, Sean McVay.
McVay.
Yeah,
Yeah. McVay's offense is, if you look at when they had Todd Gurley, who is a pass catching running back, they used him as a decoy. They didn't really throw the ball to him
gotcha.
that often. So they used the running back as a decoy, and they seem to either throw to the tight end or throw to the number 1 receiver.
Yeah, so I think one of my concerns when I looked at this was that Cooper Kupp runs a lot of crossing routes, and a lot of them are shallow. And so I thought, is there going to be enough for the tight end and Cooper Kupp to both be putting up the numbers, when I think Kupp is for sure going to get the priority? I probably overthought it. I think Higbee, yeah, he's got a shot. We'll see how it plays out. But yeah, historically, McVay's not really emphasized the tight end. But yeah, who's his number 3 in that offense now? It makes sense. So, aside from that, one of these that I wanted to point out is that we all have Gronk in our top 10 except for Yahoo. Yahoo is clearly expecting him to not come back where he left off by any means. And I know where he left off was actually lower than I'm sure a lot of people remember. But I guess I'm looking at it the other way, man. I got like the everlasting Gronk man crush, and I'm thinking, I'm just going to go and bet that the year off ended up being good for him. He's going to come back refreshed. Brady's going to want to give him the ball. And I don't know. I'm assuming you're making that same argument, and so is everybody else based on the ADP.
Well, the thing I looked at with Gronk really was the fact that his last 2 seasons in New England, he played 14 and 13 games, and he had over 1,000 yards and like 800 yards in those seasons. So I think the year off gave him the time to get healthy and be healthy and actually come into a season fully healthy, and possibly be able to complete complete a full season as opposed to missing games because of injury and putting up good numbers. Plus, the chemistry between him and Brady is there, and while Brady's developing the full chemistry with the other guys, I could see Gronk getting a lot of passes thrown his way.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, and I mean it's their weapons are deep. I mean we talked about they got Godwin, they got Mike Evans, and then at tight end they got three feasible tight ends: Cameron Brate, O.J. Howard, Gronkowski. I mean all these guys can get some action. And how much is there to go around? I don't know. If Brady's not throwing 5,000 yards, maybe that hurts a lot of these guys. But um, we'll see. I got to believe Gronk is going to be one of his favorite targets just because, we look at history and that tells us the story here. But yeah, we'll see. And hey, like I said, for me, it's definitely the man crush just coming back. I'm rooting for him. We'll see what happens.
Well, and the other thing with Gronk is he put up in 2017 he put up over 1,000, almost 1,100 yards, and he was the main focal point of the defense.
Yeah.
He didn't have any Walker or they focus on him because he was a number one receiver as opposed to the tight end. So he'd see the best cornerbacks guarding him, trying to stop him from putting up the numbers because the theory, you stop Gronk, you stop Brady.
Yeah.
And in Tampa Bay with having Evans and having Godwin, defense won't be able to focus on Gronk.
Yeah, Brady could end up picking him apart if he can read the defenses right, which I'm sure he can.
Yeah.
All right, so aside from that, let's just see. I don't know if there's much to talk about with Evan Ingram. I mean, he's proven he's good, but he also gets hurt and he's streaky a little bit. Noah Fant, you touched on him a little bit, which I do like. I do agree with all that. So I had Hunter Henry at 9. You didn't have him making the cut. Yahoo and the ADP had him higher, and that was one where honestly I could see him missing the top 10 just because some of the stuff we talked about last week with the Chargers offense without Rivers, they're not going to be putting up as many passing yards. And so that's going to hurt all those receivers. I know Henry he's in his contract year. I think that's going to be a factor. He's going to want to perform, but are they going to be passing the ball enough to give him those stats? I don't know. I'm nervous about it.
Yeah, I almost had, again, Hunter Henry, another one I almost had in my top 10, but the quarterback situation with the Chargers worries me to be able to put him that high.
Yeah. Yeah, so then we both had Austin Hooper at 10. I think he showed last year he's solid. I think he's going to get enough looks to be in the top 10. I think Yahoo had Hayden Hurst there. I do like the Hayden Hurst pick just because when you look at how much Atlanta passes, can he step into the Austin Hooper role? I'm sure he can. I'm just going to stick with Hooper because he's done it already. I know it's a new team and that puts a little bit of risk on it, but we'll see how that one shakes out. Okay, so next I had defense and kicker. I know that you didn't put together a stack on those guys, but if you want, we can talk about it anyhow.
All right, I can try to talk about it. I haven't focused on it. My theory for kicker and defense is not knowing. You're not going to know really what the defenses are going to really look like till the season starts. So you just try to get somebody that's decent and then just stream it from there.
Oh yeah, no, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying. But for this, I just had to take it to that level because I love reading about it. I love thinking about it, and so yeah, I just figured, hey, what the heck? I'll do a top 10. I did a top 10 of the kickers, but like we talked about last week, that's in my opinion hogwash. But for the defense, Yahoo, ADP, a lot of the sources I looked at, they got San Fran sitting at number 1. it's hard to argue against that when you look at how well they played last year. I think one thing that people got to remember is that they did lose DeForest Buckner. I know they've got a ton of talent on that side of the ball, but I'm always hesitant to put the team with that much hype at number one. And so all I really did was bump them down to two. I put Pittsburgh in the one spot. And when I thought about Pittsburgh, I thought about the game script, and I thought, man, you look at how great their defense was last year when their offense was like subpar without a doubt. Now this year, you get Big Ben back, and let's just say he stays healthy or healthy enough. I think that takes a ton of pressure off that defense, and they go to that next level, which they're already like right there.
Well, the thing that concerns me with Pittsburgh is last year they put up ridiculous stats. I mean, it looks like they forced 38 turnovers. And their ridiculous stats last year actually had them at less points per game than the previous year. Somehow.
Gotcha.
Oh no, never mind. That's not fantasy points per game. That's actual points allowed per game. Never mind. My bad.
Yeah, so that works in their favor. But yeah,
so they didn't allow 20 point. They allowed less than 19 points a game, average, 54 sacks, 3 safeties, 20 interceptions. It's just their defense seems to have taken it. Like it took a step back when Shazier,
Shazier got hurt. Yep.
Went down with that horrific injury. They took a step back, and then it looks like last year they rebounded and are figuring out how to not figuring out how to play defense, but figuring it out and putting up the solid numbers. So I can see them at number one easily.
Gotcha. So one of the things on here, and I know we talked about this one last week, is one of my bust picks is Chicago. So Yahoo's got them at 5. ADP shows them going 6. But in addition to Chicago, I think Minnesota is going to be a letdown pick, and they're in the top 10 on both of these too. I don't know. What do you think? Did you agree with that? I want to say you agreed to some degree with the Chicago pick, but refresh my memory, please.
Well, just off top, I don't remember exactly what I said when we talked about it last week, but with Chicago and Minnesota, looking at those two defenses, it's really difficult to put them in the top 10 because I think the NFC North is the most competitive division in the NFL. It has besides, Chicago has a terrible quarterback, which is a whole nother story, but you have all 4 teams. Well, 3 of the 4 teams can put up big numbers really fairly easily, and I don't see them as either of those two being top 10 defensive.
I gotcha. Yeah, so we're on the same page with that. And, kind of like you were saying, defense from a fantasy standpoint, it's hard to put a lot of weight on it. I think a lot of times, even when you feel so comfortable and confident with a team, the defenses have so much turnover from a fantasy perspective from year to year. And I just think back, it was just a few short years ago when Jacksonville tore it up. And then the next year they were like the unanimous number 1 in fantasy. And, I remember guys taking them in the freaking 6th round and me being like, you're crazy. You can't do that, man. You just can't take a defense that high. And they ended up being a huge disappointment. And so I always wait till the end in fantasy for defense unless, let's just say I'm stumped in a pick, and it's like, okay, maybe then I'll do it just because I got to unlock my brain and figure out my strategy from that point forward. But even then, it's going to be in the second half of the draft. There's no way to go for a defense or a kicker until very near the end. Yeah.
Well, with this league, we're playing team defense and special teams. With our league, that's easier way to go is take them towards the end. My other league plays individual.
Oh, you're doing IDP.
Players. Yeah, which that's such a pain to figure out because inevitably people are drafting which is what causes me to get like ridiculously talented offensive teams in that league, because people start drafting the individual players in, I don't know, like the 7th round. It's like a 20-round draft.
Okay.
So they start picking them in like 7th, 8th round. It's like, why are you doing that? Let me go over here and get. Last year I had Mahomes, Hill, Andrews,
Yeah, you're loading up. Yeah.
Mark Ingram. It's like, I've incredibly stacked roster, and that I ended up taking second because in the championship week, like all my players decided to like not play.
That's the luck factor.
Yeah.
You just got a bad week. All right, so yeah, I guess aside from that, just looking at some of these rankings, they had Buffalo up there at 4. I do like Buffalo's defense. The one that I think just flies under the radar every year is New Orleans, and they had New Orleans creeping into the top 10. I had them at 5. I dropped the Patriots down this year. ADP had them higher. Yahoo dropped them to 6. I had them at 7. The one that I had creeping in there that I've actually heard a few people talking about, and we'll see, where things go. But I put Tampa Bay in the top 10, and I think that they have potential to surprise some people this year. They're a bit of a wild card, I admit that, but they finished well last year, and the wild card part is they put up a ton of points. They had teams put up a ton of points against them, rather. Let me say it that way. But I wonder how much of that was Jameis Winston putting them in a bad spot. Now you got Brady with a good game script. I just think that Tampa Bay makes they make the jump this year.
Yeah, and I see that when your quarterback's turning the ball over 30 plus times in the season, you're starting in your own end of the field 60% of the time you take the field. You're gonna not appear to be a good defensive team and put up big scores. If your quarterback, like, that's, I think, what a lot of helped New England's defense over the years was the fact that Brady doesn't really turn the ball over, and he take the defense isn't put into bad situations with Brady, which enhances the defense's ability, because you have to go 80, 90 yards every time you touch the ball. You're going to inevitably not score all that much.
Makes sense. All right, so what do you think for the shits and giggles? Why don't we look at the kickers?
All right.
Give me just a second here to pull them up. The kickers. I mean, hey, I got a good laugh about the kicker thing last week, but I thought, hey, we're doing the exercise. I'm going to take it all the way, and I'm going to put together my top 10. All right, here we go. I don't think it's any surprise. Everybody's got Justin Tucker at 1. I mean, hey, he's got arguably the strongest leg in the league, and he's on one of the top offenses. I worry about, honestly, the top 3 guys, and I matched my top 3 with Yahoo and the ADP, which, it's one of these things. All of my rankings, quarterback, running back, all of them, I put together my top 10 without looking at any of the other rankings, unless it was purely to check stats or to read some notes about what's going on with a player. But I didn't actually use that as a reason to move a guy up or down my board. And you can kind of see that in my rankings. Like the top 3, there's some variation. But for kicker, I just thought, man, I don't know. It was like right on with Yahoo and ADP, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to fight it because that's just what I did. But I think everybody just kind of that pays attention thinks, well, Justin Tucker for sure. You go Butker because he's on probably the best offense. And then Will Lutz because New Orleans, they're just steady. They're going to score points too, which means he's scoring points. From there, hey, you do whatever you want to do. I think from there, you just better make sure that the kicker you take is actually locked in on a team, because there has been some serious churn with kickers these last few years. And I know even going into this season, There's some kicking battles. I believe Hauschka is fighting for a job. There's a lot going on, and so. But you can make the argument with any of these. We talked about it last week. I like going after a guy that's got a big leg. If he plays in a dome or a nice weather area, that's a plus. I don't typically want a guy on one of the top offenses because you're trading ones when you could be getting threes. But he's got to be on a good enough offense that they're going to score points. And so, I'm looking for an offense that's middle of the road or better, but not necessarily one of the top guys. And I don't know, man. I had one on here. It kind of excited me when I saw the Yahoo ranking. They had Young Ho Koo at 10, and I had him at 9. I thought, wow, man, I'm not the only person looking at this guy, but it's he's one of these guys, man. He latched on with Atlanta, and that they're just going to score. I don't want to say they're going to score a ton of points, but I think when you look at like the last 3 or 4 years, Atlanta is one of the top teams for field goals like every year. And so I just thought, hey, what the heck, man? I'll squeeze him in there and see what happens.
Yeah, I could see that with Koo. The kicker I like coming into this year probably would be Zerline.
Okay, because he's moving over to Dallas.
Yeah, and I see the thing I see with Dallas's offense is, over the years is they kind of sputter in the red zone. Like I heard some ridiculous stat the other day that if between outside of like just like dives like from like the 3 to the 10-yard line, Zeke Elliott is like 20% successful.
Oh wow.
Or some ridiculous. Don't actually quote me on those stats, but it was some like eye-popping number. Like, how is that possible?
Yeah.
And so their offense sputtering in the red zone. I could see him putting up a lot of points this year.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, man, when it comes to kickers, these guys are fickle beasts, man. They get in their heads a lot. They get in their own heads a lot. They miss a kick, and sometimes these guys never recover. And so, I think we probably mentioned it last week that if you get a kicker and they falter, man, you just got to flip them and just stream the heck out of it. There's no reason to be loyal to a kicker in fantasy, in my opinion.
Yeah. Kicker's generally the very last pick I make.
Yeah. Sometimes, man, if I got a wild card pick in my back pocket that I know nobody's going to take in that last spot, maybe I'll jump around and take a kicker around earlier just because I'm thinking, oh, nobody's going to go after this wide receiver or this running back. And so I'll just wait till the very end to grab them. And then if they pan out, I'll be like, yeah, he was my last pick, like kind of rub it in a little bit. It doesn't happen all the time, though.
but then I remember last year's draft, I apparently kept picking the guy you were going to take as your next pick.
Right you were sniping me a lot. Yeah, I remember that. And now that we've shared all this information, it's going to be interesting this year.
Yeah.
So
which was funny because we didn't talk about fantasy that much on who we were high on or anything last year going into the draft. What just happened was like, I think this guy. I have hopes for this guy.
Yeah, I think in general we've been pretty secretive in the past because we know, it's an intense rivalry we got going on here, man.
Yeah.
So, but it's good stuff. Hey, I'm hoping the season comes. I mean, this stuff going on this week between the NFL and the NFLPA makes me a little bit nervous. Talking about the money side of it.
They actually agreed today.
Okay, what'd they end up agreeing on?
They agreed that they're going to spread the losses out over 4 years.
Oh, for the cap. Yeah, I saw that. Yep.
for the cap, they're going to start training camp, and then it's going to be like they're not even going to put pads on until August 19th.
Gotcha.
And then basically have 3 weeks of padded practice before the first game.
So, let me ask you this, and I know we're just running on a tangent here, which why the heck not? This is the whole point of Gridiron Grinder is that we're going to be, just shooting the shit about football. But in your opinion, are you okay with them skipping the preseason and jumping right to it? or do you think that they need to be? I mean, I think it's done. They've already said they're not going to have a preseason. But and I'm asking you this because, in my opinion, I would rather them just delay the season by a month or 2 months or 3 months because I think preseason is huge for all of those fringe players that may or may not make the team. They need those little bit of reps to have that one pop play and get on the radar, you know. And I think without
Yeah.
that, you know, we're going to lose some of these diamonds in the rough that we normally get every year. You know, I mean, like go back however many years ago, like you know, way back in the day, Danny Woodhead, man, was like the star of Hard Knocks and you know the preseason All Star, and you know, like the Jets, they let him go anyhow. New England brought him in and turned him into you know a household name, and but without the preseason, I don't think I don't think you get as many of those happy stories like that, you know.
Or yeah, yeah, or Philip Lindsay was an undrafted free agent that popped in training camp and showed some stuff. You had Victor Cruz.
Yep.
So I agree with you there. We're losing out on those undrafted. Basically, it's going to be a lot of the undrafted free agents that we're not going to know about. But I think for this year, I don't think delaying the season would do anything. I think this year is one of those years where you just have to have to do what you have to do.
Just jump
Really.
in and get it done.
Yeah. And it's like one thing one thing I heard is like right now I guess rosters are at 90. By like next week or by the start of training camp or by a certain day, like I forget exactly. I didn't hear. Like before basically they're even doing padded practices, they have to cut 10 players.
Gotcha.
So they're only coming in with 80 players to
Yeah.
training camp.
So what do you think? Just put a percentage on it. What's the chance we have a full season?
Oh, the NFL is just it's a 100% chance we're going to have a full season.
You think they're going to find a way to just power through?
Yeah, because if you look at it, there's so much supply for NFL caliber talent, so little demand. They're
Yeah.
just going to pop the next guy up, whoever it is. They're just going to pop them right in there and up. It's your chance, and
Hey,
they'll
man.
find somebody.
Yeah, I hope we have a season. You know, as a fan, I want to see it. You know, I love the football. I'd be sad without it. But at the same time, man, this whole COVID thing makes me nervous. It just seems like we're going to have a little rash of an outbreak here or there. Some players are going to get nervous, and I think the whole thing could fall apart fast. And you know, looking at college football, man, they're like basically already going to just say they're like on the edge of just saying, nope, we're not going to do it at all. So it's
Yeah.
I think the NFL is in a better position, but I don't think they're that far behind.
Well, but the thing with not doing college football at all in the fall, the reason why I don't see them completely foregoing the college football season is like Barry Alvarez came out today and said that if there wasn't football this year, the budget shortfall for the University of Wisconsin would be $100 million.
Oh yeah, it would kill them.
Yeah, so I think that come come hell or high water, there's going to be football. It's just what that looks like this year is going to be possibly a little bit different.
I got you. All right, well, hey man, I'm thinking we wrap it up. I think it was fun talking about our top tens. We got to come up with another cool topic for next time. But you know, I think in closing here, for anybody listening, if you like it, hit the like button or hit subscribe, and we'll keep pumping these things out. Hopefully, they get better and better as we go. James, once again, man, I had a lot of fun. I appreciate you doing this with me, and I'll give you a call in a little bit, man. Maybe we'll play some games or something.
All right, sounds good.
All right, see ya.
Gridiron Grinder. Hut hut hike.